ever read a really good book? Yes?
Yes.
Have you then subsequently seen the film version of that book ever? I wonder what happened after that. Have you ever felt the film wasn't really quite as good as the book? Lots of nodding heads. Mr. Chairman, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. Tonight I'm going to tell you about two books that I've read, which I've seen the film versions of, and tell you what I learned from the experience. The first book is Catch-22. I wonder if anyone has read it? It was quite an iconic book in its time. Came out in the late 50s, I read it in the early 60s, and it's an anti-war book written by an American. It's set in the Second World War. The main character is United States a captain in the Air Force. And the catch-22 of the title just pervades the book. A catch-22 which entered the language at that time. I'm not sure if it's still quite there, the catch-22. Is that an expression we use today? A little bit, yes. And a catch-22 is a situation you cannot possibly get out of. There were loads of catch-22s in this novel. And I've mentioned that it's an anti-war novel, but it's a spoof war novel. It's very, very funny. And one of the main catches that Captain Yossarian, the main character, experiences is that he wants to get out of the war because he's scared. People are shooting at him. And he tries to prove to the medical officer that he's insane, and then he'll get sent home on medical grounds. But the medical officer says, well, if you want out of the war because people are shooting at you, that's a very rational thing to want, so I can't possibly say that you're insane. And there's loads of catches. As I say, a really funny novel. And larger than life, all of the characters are larger than life. There's one in particular, the Spiv, Milo. The Spiv is the person who can get you anything at all, despite it being wartime. Fresh meat, fresh fruit. He can even get you silk underwear to send home to your loved ones because he pinches the silk from the canopies of the parachutes. He can get you recreational morphine by stealing it from the medical kits. And in the book, all of these kind of things, larger than life, very, very funny. It was an iconic book at the time. People were reading it all over the place, at bus stops, on the subway, and laughing out loud. And you would see other people nodding and pointing as if, yes, I've read that, I know what you're laughing at. So when the film came out, there were queues at the cinema, and I was in the queue. And there was a great sense of camaraderie in the queue because everybody had really enjoyed the book. Well, it was the most disappointing film I personally have ever seen because it kept its anti-war message, but it lost all the humour. And we in Toastmasters know how very effective humour can be in highlighting a serious point. They just lost it. For example, the Spiv character I was telling you about, Milo, was really evil in the film. Now, what he was doing was evil. What the author was doing was pointing out the fact that during wartime, all sorts of other lesser evils happen. But, for example, in the film, you see an airman plummeting to his death, pulling on his parachute, and it doesn't work because the silk has been stolen by Milo. You see another airman lying in the battlefield, his guts de-hissing onto the battleground, literally. You know, he gets splashed with blood if you were too near the screen, and dying in agony. The paramedic running up to him, opening the medical box, and the morphine has gone because Milo has stolen it for selling it for recreational purposes. The film was just far too serious. Lost all kind of light relief. And the audience went out disappointed, downcast, depressed. The film just didn't work. It kept its anti-war message, but lost the humour. And for many months or years after that, I went along to films of books I had read expecting to be disappointed, and I was. The film was never as good as the book, so I stopped going to see films of books that I had read. Until a few years ago, I read this book, The Girl with a Pearl Earring, which is a fictional story based on the painting by Vermeer. And this is a beautifully romantic book. It's very poetically written and is wonderfully layered. The main story is that of Vermeer and his model, the young girl. Then underneath that, there's the story of the girl and her brother, which is important. And then there's another family altogether whose lives interweave with those two stories. Beautifully written. I can recommend it. But when the film came out, I really hesitated to go to it. And I thought, no, I'm not. But so many people said to me, oh, it's a lovely film, you must go. That along I went. And it was indeed a beautiful film. It's set in 17th century Holland. The settings and period costume, the casting, the cinematography, everything was just excellent. And I thoroughly enjoyed the film, and I came away uplifted. And then, a little while later, I thought to myself, they changed the ending. And yet, the film worked. And then I remembered, the girl had no brother in that film. How could that be? He was such an important part of the book. And yet, the film worked. And then later again, I remembered that other family I told you about. No mention of them. I wanted to be indignant, but the film worked. So from that experience, I have decided that the film and the book are two completely different media. The best thing to do is to go along with as open a mind as possible, not expect it to be the same as the book, to be perhaps just as good but different. So happy reading, happy film going, Mr. Chairman.